And of course, we all know Kane as one of the most iconic characters, one of the most iconic masked characters in the history of horror movies, right? Am I right? And of course, I'm talking about the gorilla from House Part 2.
Hey, who saw that scene? What did I do? What happened to me as the gorilla, and then what did I do?
Did you fall over the banister?
Yes, I got bumped into by the big guy.
Yep.
Pulled my gorilla head off
It's like a caveman.
and said, "Hey," and then he punched me and I flew off the balcony. Not an easy fall to do either, because I had to rotate off over the banister.
It looked like it. I was going to ask how you went about that one, because it looked like a pretty stiff bump.
That's how.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a two-part thing, of course. I went over it was a big, wide banister, so I had to kind of flip over and went into my boxes, which is what I prefer to land in when doing a fall. And then did the end of it where I just jumped off a platform and landed on my back on the couch next to the stunt woman.
What was that?
Somebody got a text.
Turn it off! Turn it off! I gotta ask, just at the start, what was it that got you interested in doing stunts in the first place, and got you into that line of work?
Well, I was going to college, majoring in geography, and in between semesters, I went to visit a buddy of mine from high school who was down in LA, and I wanted to do some touristy stuff, so we went to Universal Studios, and I saw the Wild West stunt show.
Yeah.
And I became enthralled by it because I thought, you know, they're doing stuff and getting paid for it. It looks like just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And because if any of you have read my book, you know I talk about when I was a kid and growing up and stuff. During the happier times, I used to love to pretend that I got hurt. Like I'd ride my bike. I grew up on an island, and I would ride my bike and make sure somebody was riding their bike past me, and I would go towards a sign and hit the sign with my hand and then fall off my bike like I smashed my head. Oh my God, and they'd come over and, are you okay? And then I'd get up and laugh at them. So I just always loved doing stuff like that. And then when I saw people making a living doing that, I was like, I wonder if I should look into this. And I waited till the stunt show was over, and I asked one of the stunt guys, how did you get started, you know? And he told me about a stunt school in Santa Monica that existed that didn't help you get in the business, but it would help you learn the basics that you need to know to do stunts. And so I decided to go there. And I thought, I'm gonna take a semester off of college, go to this stunt school for a few months, see if I like it, and if not, I can always go back to college. And I never went back. Which I wouldn't recommend to anyone, because I never got my degree, and if I hadn't worked out in stunts, I would have been screwed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And you know, it seems like I'm just kind of passing the buck saying that you should do it a certain way when it worked out, but I didn't. But if I had had my degree and it didn't work out, I would have been much better off. Otherwise, because even when I started in stunts, the first 8 years that I was in the stunt business, I didn't make a living. Didn't work enough to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
I loved every minute of it that I got, but you know, it takes so long to build a career in the stunt business, much harder than acting.
Oh yeah.
Because acting, you can audition and maybe get the part if you get lucky, but stunts, there's no auditioning for stunts. You get hired by a stunt coordinator on a film or TV, and the only way you get hired is if you're known, because a coordinator's not gonna hire somebody unknown to do something dangerous, because they don't know if they're any good. So it takes forever to get any kind of credibility. And I didn't know anybody in the business. That's why, you know, like relatives of successful stunt people have it much easier. They say, hey, I'm new in the business, but you probably know my uncle so-and-so. Oh yeah, I've worked with him many times.
Yeah.
So it gets your foot in the door. But if you don't know anybody, and I didn't, then it takes forever.
I can imagine.
But I just always loved doing it. And I got into the Screen Actors Guild, which is the union for acting and for stunts, in January of 1977. And in July, I got burned. So 6 months after starting my official professional career, almost died as a result of a fire stunt that didn't go right. And, you know.
What was that stunt for?
For many years, I used to say it was for a pilot for a TV show that never aired, because I didn't want to admit how it really happened. Because if I had admitted it back then, how ridiculously stupid I was, I wouldn't have been hired again, probably.
Really?
I was doing it for publicity. There was a newspaper reporter wanted to do a story about me in the newspaper about guy, hey, he's local guy starting to work in the stunt business. So I said, well, I'll do a fire stunt for you, just to get some photos. And I had done it this way several times before, and thought, you know, no big deal. I'll just do it the same as I've always done. And it just completely, fire is so unpredictable that completely went out of control, burned 45% of my body. I was in the hospital 5.5 months.
Wow.
Then outpatient for 6 months after that, because there's so much that happens to your body when you get burned that, you know, even when you're out of the hospital, that's when the work begins. Because your skin, when it heals from burns, tightens up so that you have contractures, and you know, you can still see. That's almost 40 years later, and my neck is still contracted. I could have surgery there, but it would keep me out of work for a couple months, and so I just haven't done it. Nothing that really limits me, so I don't worry about it.
Okay.
It looks kind of bad, but you know, with the characters I play, does it matter? No, not really.
I was gonna ask, what would you say was the sketchiest stunt that they would describe it to you and you're like, I don't know about that one?
Well, there's been a few, and you know, fortunately, a competent, confident director will let you, as the stunt performer, design the stunt so that it's as safe as possible and still looks just as good as what he wants to see, he or she wants to see. So, like I said, if they're confident enough in their ability, sometimes they're insecure and they want to have control over everything, and they don't let you do it, and that's when people get hurt. But I can think of one in particular. There was a movie called Fair Game, with Cindy Crawford and Billy Baldwin.
Oh yeah.
We shot it in Miami, and before we got down there, the stunt coordinator says, okay, so there's 4 of us that need to do this stunt, and he says, it's gonna be me, my brother, Kane, and a stunt woman that we haven't picked yet. I said, okay, fine. He says, because I was playing kind of a character, a hitman, so the other 3 were doubling the actors, but I was playing a character. And he says, the stunt is, we're gonna be in a helicopter, we're gonna be flying in at night over a moving train, and we have to jump out of the helicopter to the top of the moving train one by one. And I had done some stuff in helicopters before and was able to anticipate one thing that people wouldn't really think about. But what happened was the first stunt guy is on the skid of the helicopter. We come in over the train and he jumps. Now, I don't know if this will make sense to you, it probably will, but probably you wouldn't anticipate it. The helicopter pilot is compensating for a lot of weight on that skid while he's flying over the train. So as soon as that weight goes, he has to, it's suddenly different weight balance, and the helicopter kind of veers off to the other side. Then he has to come in. The second guy climbs down to the skid. When he's over the train, he jumps. Same thing happens. Now the stunt woman has to jump. She's doubling an actress, and she jumps from the deck. The first two stunt guys climbed down to the skid and jumped because that made it 3.5 feet lower to jump to the train, so it feels a lot safer.
Yeah.
Now she jumps from the deck, and I'm the last one out, and I'm saying, fuck. Now, I can't let her be the only one that jumped from the highest point. Regardless of whether it was a woman or not, if the person in front of me did that, I would have to do it. So now I'm thinking, God damn, now it's a much harder. 3.5 feet you wouldn't think is a big deal, but when you're 18 feet above a train, that's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
And so by the time the fourth, being me, person jumps, you know, this thing been going like this. So I do it, and it works out fine. Now, here's another interesting thing. What I couldn't decide in my mind before we did it was, when I hit that train, land, am I going to kick back because the train is moving forward? Or am I going to be able to plant because the helicopter is also moving forward? And I really couldn't come to a conclusion. I didn't know until I did it what would happen. What would you think would happen, just your impression of?
I would think
You think, so when I land, I would kick back because it's moving forward?
Yeah, that's what I would think, is because it's going in this direction, so you would go that way, you know?
Or quite possibly just straight up and down.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what I thought, but it ended up being what she said, where since I'm flying forward, when I jump, I'm not going straight down. You know what I mean? It feels like I'm going straight down, but I'm actually, since I'm moving, I'm going like this. So because that's moving at the same rate of speed, ended up just planting, which surprised me at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It, you know, completely negated the fact that the train was moving because we're moving forward. And that's what I love about stunts, is the most successful you can be is if you have a common sense knowledge of physics, where you can anticipate, okay, I'm going to do this. Now let me think, what could go wrong and how do I avoid that? That's how you're most successful doing stunts. And that part of it really always appealed to me because I love the mental aspect to doing stunts. It's not just a mindless idiot doing stuff like they do on Jackass.
Yeah.
You know, and I always found it kind of funny when a stunt person like Hal Needham used to brag about how many bones he's broken doing stunts. Because I was like, you're bragging about fucking up. Really.
Yeah.
The whole point is to do a stunt successfully, not just go out and say, I don't care what happens. Anybody can do that. It's to do a stunt that makes it look scary as hell and you get up and walk away from it.
Yeah.
And so I have never broken a bone in my life.
Good.
40 years of stunts, my whole life playing sports, never broken a bone. And you know, I think it's large part genetics, because a lot of times I would have sworn something's broken. But my mom, when she was 80, fell down a flight of brick stairs and didn't break a bone. So
Wow.
I think I got it from her.
Now I know that there was another stuntman back in the day, and he was famous for doing like the high wire falls. I can't remember his name. I think it was Dar
Robinson.
And he actually died doing a stunt. It was a motorcycle stunt, I believe.
He was in that movie with Jeffrey Combs, I think, was in it, right?
Was he?
Was it the motorcycle that could shoot lasers? Or maybe I'm thinking of
I
No, I don't think it was that. But Dar did what's called a descender,
Yeah.
and he pioneered it, which he once jumped off the top of the CN Tower.
Mm-hmm.
with a cable attached, no airbag or anything. Obviously, whatever, 1,100 feet, the airbag's not going to matter. But in testing it, he jumped off that. And what a descender does is lets you free fall for a while and then slows your rate of descent until you stop before you hit the ground. So he perfected that in the stunt business. And then ironically, doing a motorcycle chase, and even worse, it was, if you know what going back to one means, you do a take of the chase, and then they cut the cameras. Okay, let's do it again. So you got to go back to where you started. You go back to one. So he was going back to one, somehow went off his bike and got gored by a sagebrush.
Oh my God.
And that's what killed him. So ridiculous that all the stuff he did, and then he gets killed in something so minor.
Yeah, that is weird. It almost reminds me of Steve Irwin.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. All that
Criminals.
stuff with animals, and one of them kills him.
Yeah, and it's a stingray of all things.
I know.
I want to ask about one of your earliest horror films that you worked on was The Hills Have Eyes Part 2.
Yeah.
And can you tell us some of the things that you got to do on that?
And that was the original Hills Have Eyes Part 2.
Yes.
There has been another 1 and 2 that, who was it? Fincher? No, not, who was it?
Michael Bay?
Bay, was it? Yeah, I guess it was.
I think Wes Craven did the sequel to that.
Well, there's a 1 and 2
Yeah.
in the early 80s, and then there's a recent 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But I did the original Hills of Ice 2 with Berryman. That's where I first met Michael Berryman.
Yeah.
And I was stunt doubling a character called the Reaper.
Oh, yeah.
And he's John Bloom. He's not around anymore, but way taller than me. But, you know, I was riding a motorcycle, and I was falling through a skylight and stuff like that. So it didn't really matter, but I did all the stunts for him. He was like 6'11".
Mm-hmm. If you guys want to know, want to see him in another movie too, it's to get a good gauge on just how big the guy is. Watch the John Candy movie, The Great Outdoors, and the part where he's eating the steak and the huge cook is next to him, like looking down on him. That's him. So then you can see how big the guy is.
Yeah.
Another one that I want to touch on, and it's another favorite of mine, is not a lot of people know about it. Sadly, it's Prison,
Oh yeah.
and that has
That-
some great effects.
Yeah, it was Rennie Harlan's first American film. It's called Prison. We shot it in Wyoming. I was a stunt coordinator on it and had to do most of the stunts myself. Some really, really cool stuff I had to do because we didn't have the budget to bring a lot of people, so I had to double whoever I could. I did a high fall out of the tier of the cell block with big sparks on my back as a guard. I drove a car that, now here's, the director of photography was a guy named Mac Allberg, and he did all of Sean Cunningham's films, and I used to do all the stunts in Sean's films, all the house movies and Deep Star 6 and stuff. And on Prison, Mac had enough confidence in me to say, okay, this is what I want. There's a big sally port in the prison, a big giant wooden gate within a sally port going into the prison. He says, I want you to crash the car through this gate that's going to explode with primer cord, because it was all practical wood. Just as you hit, it's going to explode. You're going to come flying through there, and I want you to slide the car up to a camera that I'm going to be operating. I said, you're going to be operating it? Because we usually do that kind of thing with an IMO, where the operator doesn't have to be there. He says, you can do that, and I want to be able to pan a little bit as the car slides up to me. And I said, Mac, I am hitting this gate completely blind. I have to imagine how far the camera is on the other side. I don't see anything until the gate explodes. And it worked out perfectly. If you ever see the movie, you see how close the car slides up to the camera, exactly where he wanted it. So I was very proud about that. But Viggo Mortensen was in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
He wasn't very well known. And Lane Smith and Chelsea something. What's her name? Chelsea.
I can't remember her name, honestly.
But a very good cast.
Yeah.
And toward the end of the shooting, John Buechler was doing the makeup effects, and he says, you know, there's a character that's going to be shot for a couple days that's in a full body makeup, latex, looked like a rotted corpse.
Yeah.
Because he's been strapped to an electric chair. He's going to come out of the ground and scream and threaten everybody and have crazy makeup. And Buechler says to me, the guy that was supposed to do it can't do it. Do you mind doing it? And I said, well, I've never done a makeup like that. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And the guy that the suit was built for was 5'8", 165 or something.
Wow.
And I'm not that size. So they had to do all kinds of modifications to be able to get me in the suit.
Oh, geez.
And then it was prosthetics laid on, 3.5 hours to get into the makeup, lenses, dentures, everything. And I actually loved being in the makeup. I thought it was a lot of fun because it was such a challenge to act when you're completely covered in latex, because if you think you're doing something with your face that would normally read on camera, with the latex it doesn't. So you have to exaggerate what you're doing. And it was just an interesting thing to do. And before we shot the scene where I'm sitting in the electric chair as it comes out of the ground, Rennie comes over and says, hey, we're going to put some live night crawlers, big fat worms all over you to make it look like, you know, you're a rotted corpse. And I said, great. And he says, when you just look up, just scream. And I said, well, why don't we have the worms coming out of my mouth when I'm screaming? And he goes, you would do that? Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to chew them up. I'm just going to put them in there, wait for the cue, and go like this, and they come squirming out. And so I did that, and you can't really see it on the shot, but I think my enthusiasm for playing a character like that is what Buechler liked. And then the following year, he was hired to direct Friday the 13th, Part 7. And he said, this is the guy I want to play Jason, because Jason has to do a lot of stunts in this movie, which he never had to do before. He always created all the stunts for the other characters. So Buechler said from the beginning, I want Kane to play Jason. And they didn't know who I was, so I had to do a screen test and everything, but eventually it happened. So it's all because of Buechler and because of that movie Prison that I started playing the character.
Right on. Now, how was that getting all suited up for it? I know that the Jason in this movie in particular looked a lot different than the other ones. Like, he had the exposed spine, he had been rotting, and
right. He kind of took the same feel from Prison and built it into Jason with the rotted look, and I thought it looked amazing.
It does.
And even though I had the hockey mask on for 7 out of the 8 weeks we shot the movie, I still had to put the prosthetics on every day underneath, because part of the mask was missing.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to be able to see that my face was what it was. So that was a pain, because all the other Jason movies I did, I didn't have to have full prosthetic face under the hockey mask. But, you know, again, I love the look of it. I still think it's the best look as Jason. And I had to do a fire stunt with that stuff on, which was challenging, and that's still my favorite fire stunt that I've done. So, yes, I started doing fire again 2 years after I got out of the hospital.
Wow.
I said, nope, not doing fire anymore. And then I started seeing guys doing it, and God damn it, I always liked doing it, though. Other than that one time.
Yeah,
So I went back.
What would you say was your favorite scene to shoot on that movie?
On Part 7?
Yeah.
boy, there's so many of them. I love the fire stunt just because of how it turned out and how long I was on fire, and the sleeping bag kill is amazing.
Yeah.
Because every single kill was completely cut by the MPAA.
I know they butchered it. It's sad.
Worst that it's ever happened to a horror film that I've done. The most censored movie, and it's still a decent movie, but it would have been so much better with the effects in it. Buechler spent so much time creating amazing things, and then it was all cut out.
Yeah, that was really sad. All the work that went into it. What would you say that was your favorite kill scene in it? Was the sleeping bag?
Yeah, favorite Jason kill still is the sleeping bag.
Very cool.
Because he kills somebody with something that's not a weapon.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Now, and then you went on to do the next one in Jason Takes Manhattan, and I know that they used British Columbia and Vancouver as New York.
Yep.
I just was kind of curious the difference between filming in BC as opposed to down here in the States.
It was the makeup was easier for me, so that part of it was much better. Although I had to be wet every single shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I always look wet, because I really was. But Vancouver, I loved the city, and it was a lot of fun to shoot there. But it was the exteriors were so cold. We were shooting in February and March,
Wow.
and exteriors there were much colder than Alabama,
Oh yeah.
which is part 7. But the part I didn't like was the fact that because it was Canada, I couldn't be the only stunt coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I was on part 7. I was the stunt coordinator. Now all of a sudden I have to relinquish some of the control to someone else. So that part I didn't care for. And then Jason Goes to Hell was back in LA, so I coordinated again.
Okay.
And Jason X was back in Canada, Toronto.
Cool. The one that always kind of stuck out to me, and I kind of wonder what you went through doing that, is where you hop out of the water next to the ship and then you grab onto the rope.
Yeah. And
How-
try not to shiver.
Yeah, how long
Because it
did you
was
have to do that?
Fucking cold. Not long. I felt the water and I said, it's barely above freezing. It's in Britannia Bay, outside of Vancouver, in early March, and Rob Hedden, the director, says you got to get in the water, get under, and then come up, look around like you've just arrived, grab on, and then we'll cut. And I said, you got to make this fast, because
Oh yeah.
the longer I don't mind getting cold, but the longer I'm in there, if I see myself on camera shivering, it's going to piss me off. So, because Jason wouldn't shiver.
Yeah.
He would never run. He wouldn't shiver.
Mm-hmm.
But so I said, roll the cameras now. They rolled all the cameras. I jumped in, went under, came up, looked around like I was a badass, and then they cut, and I got the hell out of there.
Right on. What was your favorite kill on that one, on that movie?
Punching the guy's head off, probably.
Yes. Yes.
Very hard to do in real life. Very hard.
You tried?
The human neck is very resilient. Yes. But yeah, that's a pretty good kill.
Yeah.
And there was a couple others that were interesting, and of course that's when I started continuing actually with my practical jokes on the set.
Oh yeah.
I used to do things that wouldn't compromise the movie, but just to entertain myself, because I was, like in part 7, there's so many times I was just exhausted and just wanted that makeup off, so I had to do something to lighten the mood for myself, if nothing else. So, I was always known for, if I was going up to somebody close to them right before I kill them, if my mask is close, I might get up in there and go, I just farted. See if I could
Yes.
break them up, or because then they'd laugh, And the director would say, "Cut, why are you laughing? He said so." "No, I didn't say anything. I'm in character." I would only say it loud enough for them to hear. And you know, like, I don't know if you guys remember part 8 very well, but at the beginning, there's a guy and a girl on a small boat.
Yeah.
And I come in, I get the hockey mask that he's been trying to scare her with. I get a spear gun, I kill him, and she runs out and hides in the hatch of the boat, in the bow of the boat. Right. So I open the hatch and I take the spear and slowly stab her. Well, of course, there's a shot, a point of view shot, where the camera is down in the hatch. The hatch is closed, so the camera's looking up. You see the hatch open, and you see me standing up there and the spear comes in. So, I think I talked about this one in the book too, but when the camera was down there, I was able to talk to the makeup effects people, and they rolled the camera, and as I opened the hatch, I had a really big prosthetic penis hanging out of my pants. And I could see the camera, the camera guy was laughing. And I never saw the footage, and I don't think they kept it or anything, but somebody brought a photo of that
No way.
to a convention recently. I was like, "Where did you get this?"
Oh my God.
And I signed it, but
That is great.
just for my own entertainment. Got to keep it light when you're so uncomfortable all the time.
That is great, man. What about yeah, you mentioned that the boxing scene with VC Dupree. You were actually from when I talked with him for an interview, you actually wanted him to really lay it in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it would look better if he made a lot of contact with the punches and everything, so he did. And by the time I was ready to punch him, I was ready to, boy. But you know, I told him to do it, so it's like I did a movie in Australia a couple years ago called Charlie's Farm. And I don't play Charlie, but a guy named Nathan Jones does. And he's another massive guy, like Bloom, but we did a fight scene to the death. It's my death, and I told him, he's a wrestler. His his real height is 6'10", and he's like 360. That's a big guy to fight with, and we both agreed that we should make contact during the fight to make it look real. And I'm still glad we did, but you know, at one point during the fight, I've been giving him forearms to the back of the neck and stuff, and you know, at one point he gets like enraged, and the next thing he does is kick me in the chest. So his wrestler personality came out, and he got enraged and just nailed me. He's got like a size 17 boot, 360 pounds behind him, right in the chest. And I had my buddy Rick McCullum, who always works with me doing stunts. I had him, actually he anticipated it. He had reinforced the wall of the barn that Nathan was gonna kick me into, because he knew he was gonna kick me hard. And he just laid it into me. I still almost went through the barn wall, because it was like a 10-foot drop out of there. But it looks great. I mean, the fight looks good, and it was worth it, but that's like the biggest guy I've ever had to fight with, for sure.
Wow, that's intense. I know that when you're doing publicity for Jason Takes Manhattan, you actually did an appearance in full costume, and you never saw the guy for years afterwards, so I almost wondered if you actually did kill him. But now we know his background, so he's not dead. But yeah, you were on Arsenio Hall. Can you talk about
he had a
doing
popular
that?
talk show, late night talk show, and they asked me to be on as a guest in full costume, and I was like, as a guest, I'm going to sit on the couch? Yeah. I said, I don't fucking talk. What do you want me to do? That's the point. He'll make it funny because you don't talk. And I thought, well, I guess that could be good. And I arrived at the studio before I put the whole costume on, and he came over to my dressing room to introduce himself and said, I know it sounds stupid, but I'm going to be scared to death of you when you're in that costume, so please don't fuck with me. That's the wrong thing to say to me. You're going to be afraid of me, so please don't fuck with me? Okay.
Oh, God.
I won't. That's why at the end, you know, he goes to shake my hand, and I grabbed it and I held on, I pulled him, and he was scared shitless. And that's why he jumps back and he gets up, and it was quite funny. But I wanted to do more, but they really said, you know, please be careful because we don't want him to look stupid. So I had to restrain myself somewhat.
Now, and this is an interesting one that not a lot of people do know this, but you did some of the stunt work for Leatherface, right?
Yeah. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Yep.
I was the stunt coordinator on that movie, and R.A. was capable of doing everything, but sometimes you have to use a stunt person for legal reasons, and like, what's the term for, just to cover the ass of the production company. Because if somebody gets hurt
Liability.
by liability. If somebody gets hurt by an actor, it's a much bigger deal than if they get hurt by a stunt person. Because if they get hurt by a stunt person, the production company's position is, hey, we did what we could to make it as safe as possible. And that's how it would be viewed. So whenever Leatherface has a real chainsaw with a chain on it, which is, you know, a decent amount of the movie, then that's me as Leatherface. So
Really?
I did quite a few scenes. The whole fight scene in the water and everything
With Ken Free.
with Ken, yeah. That's all me, and a stunt double for him actually too. But yeah, so I did quite a number of scenes as Leatherface. I have a picture that I recently found with me without the Leatherface mask, but everything else on, standing with Tony Timpone, who used to be the editor of Fangoria.
Yeah.
Came out to visit, so. And I also took a picture with Tony in the full costume in Times Square for Jason Takes Manhattan.
Wow.
Yeah, so,
That's very cool.
yeah.
Now on Jason Goes to Hell, there's a very interesting point in the movie where you, as yourself, you actually get to be a victim of Jason, or whoever
Yeah.
Jason possessed at the time.
When I first read the script, I said, you know, Jason's evil, or whatever you want to call it, goes through other people for a while. And I said to the director, I said, you know what that means? I want to be a victim now, as myself. Because I could never do it before.
Yeah.
I would never let somebody else put the Jason costume on to be able to kill me. So I could never be a victim, but then I said, this is the perfect way. Technically, I'll be a Jason victim, even though it's not by Jason how he normally looks. And so I came up with some dialogue that would make fun of him, and then I end up dead. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that scene.
And then, of course, you're probably going to mention the scene at the very end.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Freddy claw.
Yeah, Freddy's hand comes out of the ground, grabs the hockey mask, pulls it into the ground. That was my hand, wearing the Freddy glove. So I did one shot as Freddy, too.
Yeah.
I kept the sleeve, the sweater sleeve I wore. I
Mhm.
kept the glove.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really saying a lot right there. Jason, Leatherface, and Freddy.
Yeah.
And
And I've always wanted to play Michael, and it's funny because I was being considered to play Michael,
really,
which, I forget what Halloween would it have been in 1989?
1989 Halloween 5.
5 it would have been?
Yeah, Halloween 5.
Well, whenever they were getting ready to do that, they were considering me to play Michael, but I was in Vancouver playing Jason for the second time.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, and I never had the chance again. That would be fun. I mean,
Yeah.
if I could play all four of the main, you know, even though the one shot and just some stunts is another one, but still,
You
there
know-
are photos of me as the character in the movie.
They are doing another Halloween movie. You should look into that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll be Rob, will it? No, Rob Zombie.
No, not Rob. It's John Carpenter's returning.
Oh wow,
Yeah, yeah,
wow, that would be amazing.
yeah. It could be worth a shot.
I always
man.
thought that would be a cool character to play, though.
Yeah, definitely. That would.
I'd probably have my slight different take on it, but not much, because I always hate when an actor comes in and plays a character that exists already and completely changes it. That's not what I want to see. I want to see what I'm used to and maybe a little added touches to it possibly, but don't change it up so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did play Michael in a short with Adam Green. I don't know if you ever saw that.
No, Dan, did you see it?
Yeah.
Really?
Speaking of which, are you gonna be back for Halston season 3?
I haven't been told yet, but
I hope so.
yeah, the thing I did with Adam was a little short called Driving Lessons.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, I have
It's on
seen that.
Periscope.
And
I
Joel
have seen
David
that.
Moore
Yeah.
has a driving student that he's gonna teach, and I'm the student, and I get in with the Michael mask on. It was a real one
Yeah.
from part 4, I think.
Oh, nice.
And he tries to teach me how to drive. I have to look at that again. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, I have
Pretty
seen
funny.
that.
But I don't count that as playing Michael because it wasn't in a film. So,
Yeah, no.
but let's get on
Yeah.
Twitter and talk about John Carpenter bringing me back.
Yes.
Bringing me in.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
He's doing a concert here in a couple weeks in Seattle, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Very
I
true.
had a
Yeah.
chance to talk to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know, John. I mean, I've done some, you know, how cool is this? That even I get excited about, I get starstruck sometimes. I went to dinner in Chicago once with John Carpenter. It's all of us at the same table. John Carpenter, Mancow, I don't know if you know who Mancow
Back
is.
down in the morning.
Yeah. Robert Englund, Bruce Campbell,
Wow.
and there was somebody else I'm not thinking of. Somebody else. Anyway, I'll probably think of it before I finish. But all of us sitting at in one table in the steakhouse. That was so amazing. I mean,
That's so cool.
and you know, I hadn't really ever talked to John Carpenter before, so. Looking up driving lessons.
Oh, nice. Nice. Now, with Adam Green, you mentioned that, and I really appreciate what he does, and it seems like he has a genuine love for horror and the icons
Oh, yeah.
of the past, and he uses you, Tony Todd, a lot of those guys.
Everybody in horror has been in the Hatchet movies, and I've killed all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Killed the Leatherface and the Hatchet too.
Yep, I killed Leatherface.
You killed Derek
Candyman,
Mears.
That was part 2 as well.
Jason, Derek.
Yeah.
You know, Robert. Blair Witch guy.
Yeah, yeah. And that was one of my favorite ones was when you got to fight Derek Mears, and I thought that was so cool. The old Jason and the new Jason and kicking his ass.
Yeah. And I'm glad he went along with, you know, at first Adam was talking about, you know, maybe we'll make a big fight scene between the two of you. And I said, no. No, if we do it, it's going to be quick, and it's going to be totally one-sided. And Derek was even up for it. He said, yeah, that kind of fits. That'd be good. Especially when he says, is that all you got, you little bitch, or something like that.
Yep, yep.
And then wrinkle up his neck and, you know, knew what I did to him. But Adam Green always talks about the first time we met, or there was a place that I used to go to every October called Spooky World.
Okay.
And it was in Berlin, Mass. It was at a farm. And this is when I first started doing autographs and stuff. And they asked me to come there and sign, you know, they were open every day of the month of October. And it was just a haunted attraction, very cool place. And Adam was, you know, young and had his dad bring him there to meet me. And they stood in line for 2 hours. And right, Adam tells it, right as he was getting up to the table to meet me, they took me away and I was done for the night or something.
Oh, no.
Which somehow, I think there's a mitigating factor there, because I would never leave my table if there's people still waiting. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe I had to do an interview or something and he thought I was leaving for good or whatever, but he never got to say hello, and he was like so bummed out for years. And you know, then
man.
So it was pretty cool for him to actually, you know, come up with a character that I ended up playing and kind of put me back on the map of the monster
Crowley.
serial killers. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was another one I wanted to talk about was, of course, the Hatchet series.
Yeah, I've loved playing that character too, and also Thomas Crowley. You know, I played
Yep.
Victor's father in flashbacks, and if you remember the first movie, there's a scene where young Victor's in my pickup truck with a hood on, and I drive up to a store,
Yeah.
like a country store, and I get out and go in the store, and 3 kids jump up on the running board to try and get a look at Victor, and 2 of those kids are my sons.
Really?
They were 8 and 5 at the time,
Wow.
and now they're 22 and 19. So, but it's just cool to see them as little guys harassing my character.
Wow, that is really cool. There's another one too. It is, and you had again, you got to play a victim in it, and you had it was a very cool scene, your death scene, and that is on a Wishmaster.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was one of the early times that somebody asked me to be in a horror film, and a completely different character. You know, one of the first times Kurtzman said, you know, I'm going to have you die. And, you know, I still sign that picture. Myself, Tony Todd, and Robert Englund are in that movie. And we're all in the same photo. And we sign it all the time. But it was fun just to be a victim, just to see how that side of things worked. And, you know, I become a glass door
Yeah.
as a security guard. And that glass door was painted, hand painted by Screaming Mad George.
Oh, okay.
And Kurtzman still has it in his house.
Wow.
The glass pane of me, like.
That's awesome. And I was doing the research here, and I found out another one you did. It's not horror, but it's still one that I really wanted to talk with you about. Was working on Demolition Man, one of my favorite
wow.
movies.
Yeah, I mean, because of the stunts, I was able to work on some really cool big action movies: Demolition Man, Enemy of the State, Lethal Weapon 3.
Wow.
You know, things. Batman Forever. Nobody liked that one. But Daredevil, another shitty one.
Yeah.
I was so excited because I killed Daredevil's father in that movie,
Oh yeah.
and you can't even tell it's me killing him.
Wow.
But yeah, and then the movie sucked anyway. But yeah, the Demolition Man was fun because it was Stallone, and we did a lot of car chases and in really bizarre looking cars.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, futuristic thing.
Oh yeah.
And,
With the bone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's nice that when you work with somebody that's on a level of somebody like him, and he ends up being a cool guy, because a lot of actors are assholes, as you probably know, but some of the biggest ones, for some reason, especially the guys, kind of identify with the stunt people, so they don't have to be someone different. They can be themselves around the stunt people, so they'll hang out with us on the set, and you know, And it's just fun to see somebody of that stature be themselves and not worry about what they might be saying. And you know, one of the biggest surprises to me was I did also a movie called Seven with Brad Pitt, and there was a scene where Spacey is being chased by Brad Pitt out into the street, and we're all in the street in cars, and we slide and stuff, avoid them because they did some of it themselves. And Brad gets up on cars and kind of in chasing goes across the tops of cars and back on the street and across cars, and he jumped off of my car and to the stunt car next to me, and he wanted to do a cool slide off the back of the car and continue running.
Mm-hmm.
And he put his hand through the back window of the car
Really?
and cut the hell out of his hand really badly. Ended up having to have surgery. And if you ever see the movie, you see Brad Pitt's character suddenly have a big cast on his arm.
Yeah.
And they explain it, I forget how in the story, but that was why he had it, because he got hurt doing that little action scene. And what I liked so much was that his hand is cut to shit. I mean, it was bad. It was like, even the stunt guys were saying, ooh, wow. And he wrapped it up, he says, okay, let's finish the scene and then I'll go to the hospital.
Wow.
And that to me is a stunt person's mentality, which I liked.
Right on.
He's a big star and he could have freaked out and, you know, gone crazy, but he wanted to get the scene finished and then he would go, because he's not going to lose his arm.
Yeah.
And he realizes that, you know, another 15 minutes probably won't matter. And so, you know, I became a big fan of his based on that.
I have a lot of
Just
respect for
personal
that.
experience, yeah.
Very cool.
And he was always good to all the stunt people too, so.
Nice. I want to open up the floor right now in the last few minutes, and if anybody has questions, you go first.
I was going to ask, because I've seen in these panels a lot of like makeup effect guys, creatures effect guys, including John Tarl Beekler. And one thing that always comes up is how CGI is just totally changing that landscape. As a stunt person, is it impacting the world of stunts in kind of another significant way like that?
It is, yeah. I mean, particularly in fire stunts. I've seen a lot of fire stunts when I'm watching them and say, that's not exactly what it appears to be. And they'll add flame in post-production to make it look scarier, and that, you know, as a practical stunt performer kind of pisses me off that, you know, I used to do it the dangerous way. Now you're doing it the candy-ass way.
They even have 4 people jumping out of a helicopter today. On
Right.
the train, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of that can completely be CG, but they certainly enhance things. Sometimes I don't mind it, but other times it kind of bothers me. It's just, but that's the nature of the business, you know. It's just going to keep going that way. I don't think it'll ever completely get rid of stunts, because you'll always have to have fight scenes and, you know, stuff like that. So.
I'll do you first, and then I'll do you.
Okay.
Oh, what? I worded that wrong.
What kind of show is this?
All right.
What can you
Next.
tell us about Death House?
What?
What can you tell us about Death House?
Death House, yes. Well, that's a lighthearted comedy. No. It's an interesting story about a prison that appears to be kind of a gateway to hell. And I am the leader of the inmates of the prison. I've seen some footage of it, and it looks unbelievable the way it was shot. The DP is incredible with lighting and stuff, and it looks really good. And so many friends are in the movie. Unfortunately, they're calling it the Expendables of horror, and I think shouldn't be that term, because it's the Expendables of horror. To me, would be a bunch of people that are known for horror throughout the movie. But what it is my character is throughout the movie. Most of the other horror people that are in it are cameos, and as a fan, that would piss me off. you say it's Expendables of horror, but it's really not. You're just,
I heard that.
you know, so, but it's still, I think, going to be a good movie. A lot of cool people are in it. Everybody you can think of that's known for horror practically is in it. Even Robert was going to do it, but he had some kind of scheduling conflict. But Berryman's in it, R.A., Bill Moseley, and we shot at a prison outside of Philly in a really amazing looking location in an old, not used anymore prison, or it's used a little bit, but just for like minor things. But a very cool location and an interesting story.
Cool. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Jim?
Who wins in a fight, Jason or Victor Crowley? And why?
Jason or who?
Victor Crowley.
Or Victor Crowley.
Yes. And then why?
Well, I got to play both characters.
As well you should.
So that's going to be hard to do, but I guess, you know, I've been asked that question a lot, and I would say, just character-wise, a very, very slight edge to Victor, only because he's less predictable. And that's the only difference. They're both, you know, equally as physical and adept at killing and creative and unstoppable, but just maybe the one slight edge because Victor, you can't always know exactly what he's going to do. So.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the game, was it as fulfilling playing Jason in a video game, or I mean, did you get the same kind of rush, or was it different?
You know, whenever I'm playing, if I'm playing Jason, I always feel the same. Now, you guys probably know what motion capture studio looks like.
Yeah.
So I am going to be doing horribly violent things to people, and I'm wearing spandex. Wasn't the look that you would typically think of, but I did wear the mask sometimes just for fun, because I have one of them, or you know, all of them at home. But and the other thing was, even though I looked different, just the same way I approached Jason X, I thought, oh, it's weird, it's going to be in space, but as long as I make the character look and move like we've always seen, the location doesn't really matter. So that's how I approach the game too. Even though I look ridiculous with sensors all over me, I'm still going to approach it the same way. I may look different, but I'm not acting any differently. And I didn't realize they had the capability, and maybe this is just my ignorance, but I didn't realize I would be able to stand on the stage wearing spandex and look at a monitor and see my live feed animated.
Cool.
Already. Maybe that's a common thing, but so I could look over at myself and whatever movements I did, I was Jason from Part 7. That's the look that they mostly used for the game. There's going to be different versions of Jason you can play as, but that part of it was incredible to me, that whatever I did, I could watch it and see just like what I used to look like. And interestingly, since you can play as different Jasons, and you guys probably know that I always refused to run as Jason, because in the movies I did, I didn't think Jason would run. He's already more of a zombie, for lack of a better term, yeah. So I didn't see him ever running. Now I was confronted with a little bit of a dilemma when Wes says to me, now you know people are going to be able to play as other versions of Jason, but you're the only one doing the motion capture. And one of the versions that you can play as is Part 3, which was Brooker. And if you remember, Brooker in Part 3 ran. So I was like, oh shit, now what do I do? I don't want somebody else to come in and do the mocap. But I can't ignore the fact that if you're playing as a version of Jason that looks like Brooker, you got to do what he did. So I ran. And it was weird to think I'm playing Jason. For so many years I said, I'll never run as Jason. Well, here I am doing it. But I think it was, you know, although I played the character more than anyone else, I'm not the only one that did. So I had to make it consistent with what the character looked like. If that's what they did, then I got to do it.
Did you even get to play Roy from Part 5?
No.
No?
No, they're not using Roy at all.
Okay, good answer.
Thankfully. They're using 2, 3, 7, and 8, I think.
Very cool.
So you can play as Sackhead.
That's cool.
Yeah, I always thought that was a pretty good look.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really loved your video about quitting horror. That was awesome.
Did you believe it for a while?
Maybe for a few seconds, but then I was like, no, this is Kane. It couldn't be.
Yeah. I dragged it out pretty well.
Yeah.
Long enough that people were saying, well, wait, maybe he is serious.
Well, I just saw the title says quitting horror or something.
Yeah.
What? Whatever.
Nope, not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any more ghost adventures? Ghost hunting?
Well, no more Ghost Adventure episodes, but I just had a big long meeting with 2 producers that have shows on the air right now, paranormal shows, that want to do one about our group, Hollywood Ghost Hunters. The group I founded with my buddy Rick, that everyone in the group has something to do with making horror films. But we're all interested in the paranormal, so we investigate places. So it might be an interesting, what I said at the meeting was the way that I think our show could be different, because, there's a lot of ghost investigation shows around. But to me, none of them have interesting personalities. If there's nothing paranormal going on in the episode, it's worthless. So, my approach would be, let me have the guys that I want in this, and you'll fucking laugh watching us, whether there's ghosts or not. It'll be a fun show.
I like
And
it.
that they like the idea. Because every show you think of, the people within the show are just boring. They're
Yeah.
not fun, they're not funny, and I'm not gonna make fun of paranormal, but in between investigating, you can make it more compelling than it ever is.
Mm-hmm. I got time for one more, and Danny, you had your hand up?
Okay, that.
Yeah.
Alright, this is actually kind of for you. You like to talk tough. Do you really think you could beat Kane in arm wrestling? I think he likes to brag about how strong he is.
You're gonna lose your arm.
I don't know. I think he might break my arm.
Let's just put it this way, if I did lose, he'd still lose. Because I'm not a good loser.
There you go.
Question, Scary Sleepover. You were the first episode, but were you the first episode filmed?
Yes.
You were, okay.
Yeah, and then, that the Scary Sleepover with Adam Green is, become really popular now. I was the first one to do it. And I kind of wish I had had a little more fun with it. He wanted to make it somewhat serious, and when he asked me about what scares me, for years I've always said, nothing, because none of the typical stuff I could ever come up with scares me. So I would always have a boring answer. When he said he was going to ask me that, I said, you know what? In recent years, I've come up with something that does scare me. He says, don't tell me now, wait till it's on camera. And I said, it's not anything fun or that you can, have a good time with, and he said, I don't care, if it really does scare you, then mention it. So in the episode at the end, it's supposedly people come to his place and sleep over, and they talk about stuff and then fall asleep and whatever. Just a sleepover. So at the end, he says, is there anything that scares you? And I said, well, I finally came up with something that scares me, and it's dementia.
It's a good one.
And, like I said, it's not a fun answer. I told him it wouldn't be. But if you're really asking me, if anything scares me, that fucking scares me. When somebody doesn't recognize their own family, fucking terrifying, man. And if you've ever had a family member go through it, you know how bad it can be.
Yep.
And it's just incredibly sad and scary as hell that there's nothing you can really do about it.
Watching someone die as they're still alive.
Exactly.
Really sad.
Really? Oh, man. My wife's mom just died, and her dad is still here and has dementia and, you know, doesn't even realize she's gone. His wife of 50 years. You know, that's fucking terrifying. So,
Yeah.
once again, on a shitty downer note, we
Goodness,
end
spiders.
the session.
Yeah, thank you all for coming out.